The day I sent him away, the line went so silent I thought we'd been disconnected. My own heartbeat was the only sound in my room. He finally whispered, "Okay." And I pressed the phone so hard against my ear it left a mark. That was it. No goodbye. Just the hollow click, and a loneliness so complete it had a weight, a temperature. It's funny, the things you miss. Not a face, not a touch, but a voice in the dark that felt like a hand reaching out, finding yours and holding on. And I let it go. That was the end. But the beginning was a wrong number. It was 1998. I lived in a town so small the silence had its own texture. My evenings were a closed loop. Work, home, the kitchen light over a solitary plate. My parents' old rotary phones sat on the wall in the hallway, a heavy olive green thing that almost never rang. When it did, it was a shock. That first call came on a Tuesday, a rainy, endless Tuesday. The voice on the other end was warm, a little blurred with static. "Jenny?" "No," I said, already leaning to hang up. "Sorry, wrong number." A pause. "Oh, my apologies." But he didn't hang up. There was a hesitation in his breath. "You don't sound like Jenny." A laugh slipped out of me, surprising us both. "Well, I've been told I have a very un-Jenny-like voice." His own laugh was low, a soft rumble through the wire. "I'll have to take your word for it. Sorry to bother you." "No bother," I said, and I meant it. The house felt less empty. We hung up. But that was the crack in the dam. 3 nights later, the phone rang again, just past 9. I knew. Don't ask me how, but I knew it was him before I even picked up. He said my name, the one I'd given him when he'd asked that first night. "Clara, it's me, the wrong number guy." His name was Leo. He lived 2 towns over, a world away in the pre-internet geography of our lives, and we began to talk. Not a flurry of calls, but a slow, deepening rhythm. Every other night, then every night, always after 9, when the long-distance rates dropped. I fell in love in the dark, through a coiled cord stretched between 2 silent houses. I fell for the patience in his silences, the way he'd listen, truly listen, to my rambling stories about my boring job at the library, my fears about never leaving this town, my secret dream of learning to sail even though I'd never seen the ocean. He remembered everything. He'd ask 2 weeks later how the photocopier war at work was going. He'd recall that I hated the smell of lavender. We never asked for a description. No photos in the mail. It was an unspoken pact. Love, for us, was a blindfold and a whispered secret. My imagination painted him in broad, gentle strokes, the slope of a shoulder, the way a hand might curve around a coffee mug. His face was a kindly blur. It didn't matter. His soul had a clear voice, and it spoke directly to mine. The winter was brutal that year. The cold seeped through the old window frames. One night, listening to him describe fixing a drafty door in his own apartment, an idea took root. It was reckless, terrifying, a crossing of a line. I spent a week knitting a scarf. My hands were clumsy, the stitches uneven. It was a deep, woolly blue, the color of the evening sky just before the stars appear. I folded it with a letter, just a single page about the winter light on the frozen lake outside my window. I wrote about how warmth isn't just a temperature, but a feeling of being held. I sent it to a P.O. box, the only address he'd ever given me. The wait was an agony. For a week, our conversations were careful, dancing around the elephant in the room. Then one night, his voice was different when he answered. "Clara?" He said my name like it was a fragile thing. "You got it," I whispered, my throat tight. He was quiet for so long I thought he might be crying. "I'm wearing it right now," he said, his voice thick. It's the warmest thing I've ever owned. He described the blue, the way one end was slightly wider than the other, how he could see where I'd dropped a stitch and picked it back up. I love that part the most, he said, his voice cracking. It's perfect. I cried then, silent tears streaming down my face in the dark hallway, the receiver damp against my cheek. He had seen it, not just the scarf, but the intention in every imperfect loop. He saw me. That was the moment the phone became a cage. The voice was no longer enough. We needed air and light and the terrifying risk of sight. We decided to meet. The plan was simple. A Saturday. The old train station in Maple Creek, the halfway point. He'd be on the north bench under the clock. He'd wear the scarf. The week before was a blur of pure, dizzying fear. What if the magic was in the mystery? What if the man who lived in my heart didn't match the man who stood on the platform? The dream was so beautiful. Reality is a clumsy thing. It breaks things. That Saturday, the sky was a flat, pale gray. I drove the 30 miles with my hands clenched on the wheel, my heart a frantic bird in my chest. The station was quiet, just a few people milling about. My boots crunched on the gravel as I walked toward the platform, each step feeling too loud, too final. And then I saw him, a man on the north bench. He was looking down at his hands, turning something over in his fingers. He was just a shape, a stranger. I stopped, frozen. This was it. The end of everything, or the beginning of something real. I made myself look. Not at his face, but at the way he sat. His shoulders slightly hunched, not with defeat, but with a nervous anticipation. The way his foot tapped a quiet, anxious rhythm on the pavement. And then I saw it. Around his neck, the deep, uneven blue of the scarf I'd made. My own clumsy stitches, wrapped gently against the cold. My breath caught. He must have felt my stare. He looked up, and in that moment, I didn't see a stranger. I saw the quiet patience in his pause. I saw the kindness that remembered a dropped stitch. I saw the man who had kept me company in the dark for a year. The face was new, but the soul was the one I already loved. He stood up. A slow, tentative smile touched his eyes first, then his lips. He didn't wave. He just waited, the scarf a blue flag of truce against the gray day. My feet moved before my mind could panic. I walked toward him, the world narrowing to that bench, that blue, that familiar smile in an unfamiliar face. I stopped a few feet away. The silence between us was alive, humming with 1,000 unspoken nights. He spoke first. His voice, the one I knew better than my own, was soft, breathless with wonder. Clara. Hearing my name in that voice, here in the daylight, undid me. A tear escaped, tracing a hot path down my cold cheek. I smiled, and this time, it reached every part of me. "Hi, Leo," I said. And just like that, the dream stepped into the light, and it was real. The space between us on that platform wasn't just air. It was every unsaid word, every whispered dream, every silent hour we'd shared. It was a canyon I was terrified to cross. He took a half step forward. The scarf moved with him, a blur of blue. "You're here?" he said, and it wasn't a question. It was a soft release of breath, like he'd been holding it for a year. I could only nod. My voice was gone, stolen by the sheer reality of him. He was taller than I'd pictured. His hair was darker. He had a small scar above his eyebrow I never could have imagined. But his eyes, they held the same quiet warmth that had always been in his voice. They were watching me, reading my face with a careful tenderness that made my chest ache. "This feels..." I started, then shook my head, a helpless laugh bubbling up. "It feels like I'm meeting a ghost who's suddenly solid." His smile deepened, crinkling the corners of those eyes. A solid ghost. That's about right. He gestured weakly toward the station door. There's a diner across the street. They have terrible coffee. We could... Yes, I said too quickly. Terrible coffee sounds perfect. The walk was a surreal parade, side by side, but not touching. The silence between us was different now, filled with the rustle of our jackets, the distant sound of a train whistle, the loud beating of my own heart. I was hyper-aware of his every movement, the way his hand brushed against mine and then jerked away, the glance he stole at me as we waited to cross the street. The diner was a time capsule. Cracked red vinyl booths, the smell of grease and coffee, a jukebox glowing in the corner. We slid into a booth by the window. The moment we sat down, facing each other, the enormity of it crashed over me again. This was the man who knew my deepest fears, my silliest memories. And I was sitting across from him, trying to figure out if he took cream in his terrible coffee. We ordered 2 black coffees. The waitress left, and the silence settled back in, thick and expectant. He reached up and slowly unwound the scarf, folding it carefully on the seat beside him. The gesture was so intimate, so tender with the thing I had made, that it broke the spell. "You really wear it," I whispered. He looked down at it, his fingers tracing a row of stitches. "Every day since I got it. It's my armor." He looked up, his gaze direct and vulnerable. "It felt like you were with me." Tears pricked my eyes again. I was a faucet. I was so scared to send it. It felt like throwing a rock at a stained glass window. Beautiful, but so fragile. "You didn't break anything, Clara," he said, his voice low and sure. "You put in a new pain, a stronger one." The coffees came. We wrapped our hands around the thick mugs, anchors in the swirling strangeness, and then we began the quiet, miraculous work of mapping the person onto the voice. He'd tell a story I'd heard before, about his dog eating his physics textbook in college. But now I could see the way his eyes lit with humor, the way his hands animated the air. I told him about my tyrannical library supervisor, and now he could see my exasperated eye roll, the way I bit my lip to keep from laughing at my own imitation. The conversation began to flow, easier now, the old familiar rhythm finding its footing in this new, bright space. The fear didn't vanish, but it softened, edged with a dawning, incredible joy. "Can I ask you something?" he said after a lull. He looked nervous. "Now that we're here, what did you think I looked like?" I felt a blush creep up my neck. It changed. Sometimes I pictured you with glasses, sometimes with lighter hair, but the feeling was always the same, a solidness, a calm. I took a breath. "You're better. You're real." He looked down, a shy smile playing on his lips. "I always pictured you smiling. Even when you were talking about sad things, I could hear it in your voice, and you do. You have a smile that... Well, I heard it right." The afternoon light shifted, turning golden through the diner window. We talked until our coffee was cold and the waitress gave us a pointed look. We paid and stepped back out into the crisp winter air. It was colder now. The sun was beginning to dip. We stood on the sidewalk, the meeting place behind us, the future a vast, unknown street ahead. "What now?" I asked, the question hanging between us. He didn't answer with words. He simply reached for the scarf on the bench and with a gentle, deliberate motion, looped it around my neck. His fingers brushed my jaw, a fleeting electric touch. He adjusted the wool, his eyes serious on mine. "Now," he said softly, his hands coming to rest on my shoulders. "I walk you to your car, and I get your number, the right number, and tomorrow I call you, and we do this again, but without the terror." A real, full laugh burst out of me, light and free. Just the mild, everyday terror of dating. Exactly, he grinned. The ordinary, wonderful terror. He did walk me to my car. We stopped by the driver's side door, the gravel crunching under our feet. The sky was on fire with a pink and orange sunset, painting his face in warm light. This was the moment in every story. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. His kiss was not a question, but an answer. It was soft and sure, and it tasted like cheap diner coffee and a year of waiting. It felt not like a first kiss, but like a continuation of a conversation we'd already been having for a very, very long time. When we pulled apart, my forehead rested against his. I could feel the wool of the scarf, warm from his skin, against my chin. "I'll call you tonight," he whispered, "just to make sure you got home." "I'll be waiting," I whispered back. I drove home in a daze, the scarf around my neck, the ghost of his touch on my lips. The house wasn't silent when I walked in. It was filled with the echo of his voice, now paired with his smile, his hands, his eyes. The dream hadn't shattered. It had taken root. It was growing. The phone rang at exactly 9:30. I picked it up, my heart full and calm. "Hello? Clara?" His voice came through, warm and real. "Tell me about your drive home." And I did. We talked for hours, just like we always had, but everything was different. Now, when he described looking out his window at the moon, I could picture the exact curve of his shoulder as he leaned on the sill. Now, when I told him I was smiling, he knew what it looked like. Love didn't begin that day on the platform. It began long before, in the dark, on a wire stretched across 2 towns. That day, we simply gave it a face. We gave it hands to hold. We gave it a future. And sometimes, even now, on a quiet evening, I'll find that old blue scarf in the back of our closet. The stitches are still uneven. One end is still wider. I'll wrap it around my neck and remember the winter I sent a piece of my heart through the mail to a man whose face I didn't know, and how in return he gave me my whole life.